Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Millions of veterans return home from war and they face the greatest battle of their life, how to re-acclimate to civilian society. Our guest right now is Gary D. Rodriguez. He's the CEO of Peopleistic, LLC, USA. He's also an internationally acclaimed expert on the science of human excellence and a published author on leadership. Gary, thank you for joining us.
It's really good to be here, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
And Gary is a friend of Real News PR, my PR firm, and he's just an amazing guy. I can't say enough about him. Gary, we're talking about veterans today, and it seems like we as a country do a lousy job reintegrating veterans back into society. I think about, they spend, 12 weeks at boot camp, and we train them how to fight and become killing machines, and then they may get a 3 or 4 hour kind of decompression course before they're sent back to society. That doesn't work, does it?
No, it doesn't. One of the biggest issues that veterans have, of course, is that transition coming from military service into civilian life. It is a huge transition, generally a culture shock. Oftentimes there is, combat trauma that's also present. So to go from something as intense as having your life threatened on a daily basis back into civilian life and then say, okay, now it's all done. Now you get to be successful in a very non-directional society. Because in the military, there's a very strong trajectory that's mapped out on what and how you move forward. But when you get into civilian life, it's very much, you're on your own. You figure out now what you want to do based upon the strength of your identity, your interests, your innate strengths and weaknesses, which most people don't even know. So as a consequence, there's a real directionless quality to coming back into the civilian life again. I know many military individuals, men and women that I've worked with, they entered the military to find identity, to discover tribe, to actually be part of something that was more meaningful. And then when either they become injured or they fulfill their course of duty, they're either injured mentally, emotionally, or physically, and then suddenly they're cast into a society where there is no clear trajectory. So I became partners with a very close friend of mine, and we've just launched a national nonprofit organization called Wisdom for Warriors.
That's awesome.
In that, I tackle all the career resiliency pieces, and we have a team of trainers that will go out into organizations and train organizations how to best transition veterans. Because I know that there's a lot of organizations out there that really desire to hire veterans, but their retention rate oftentimes will be quite low. Veterans bring such a dynamic, already inherent sense of leadership into the workplace. They already have that. But oftentimes within the organization, there's not a clear trajectory about how do you move forward. How do you actually take your innate talents and transition that into a military application? Into a civilian application within the workplace. So it becomes really important for organizations to help veterans create that transition, and that's what Wisdom for Warriors is built for.
I think there's a lot of employers who they see the headlines about PTSD and they say, I love this country, I love veterans, but I don't want to risk having some kind of meltdown at work. Is that a fear that they should have?
I think not, personally. One of the things that, as you know, in the work that I've done for the last 35 years in the professional and personal development fields, a lot of what I've done is doing the understanding, is developing systems for helping people actually remove the emotional inhibitors that block them and create a clear career path forward. And in that process of those years in the trenches, because I've coached about 11,500 people worldwide, so in that experience, what I discovered was a very powerful yet very simple trauma resolution technique that decodes a person's nervous system in anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes. It has worked very successfully in the veteran space. I've worked not only with Australian veterans in the Vietnam War and Afghanistan and Iraq War, but also here in the United States as well. And I remember one veteran I worked with that had attempted suicide 2 weeks prior to working with me. He had literally said, that he had done everything. He had done the EMDR, he had done the long exposure therapy, he had done all the drugs, he had done all what the VA had to offer. Nothing worked. And he had been 2 years battling this one core trauma. And we got it resolved in a half hour.
Wow.
And he literally, before he left, because I was in a workshop at the Center for Brain Health. It wasn't sponsored by the Center for Brain Health, but it was held there for veterans. And when he left, he hugged me. He wouldn't literally let me go. And he just cried and cried and cried and said, why wasn't this available to me 2 years ago? Like, why didn't I know this? So one of the outcomes and focuses for Wisdom for Warriors is, how do you give veterans the deep dive to their own mental emotional management, make them the most self-leading of any type of staff member that any organization could ever have? Because I train 3 core competencies. First is self-leadership, which is a foundation to all leadership development. Second is people intelligence. How do you make the veteran actually have incredible communication skills, not only in the professional space, but also at home? Because, whatever you are experiencing at home and that transition back into your relationships is also the foundation of how healthy you're going to be in the workplace. So those two really go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
That emotional healing in the personal space. And then how do you teach them the core competencies of thinking from 7 different perceptual positions, having innovation strategies of Thomas Edison, and teaching them how then to innovate and problem solve so that they can take historical issues on a team and help that team actually work those issues to a solution and then roll that out into execution and project management. So our whole premise is, let's take the veterans, let's teach them an industry-needed and industry-desirable leadership skills, and then set them loose as the leaders they already are into the workplace that makes them the most valuable members of that organization. And that's my whole passion right now.
That's awesome. Our guest again, Gary D. Rodriguez. He is the CEO of Peopleistic LLC USA. Gary, what is your website?
Website is peopleistic.us for the corporate. And then for Wisdom for Warriors, it's wisdom with a number 4, wisdomforwarriors.org.
Okay, so I think about a member of the military, and I think about the discipline, the courage, like you said, the leadership that they have. They're literally battle tested,
Yep.
So they do have some strengths that you probably don't find in a typical civilian workplace, do you?
No, they have a completely different set of skills that have been, I think, hardened in the fire of the military service. And one of the other aspects of focus for Wisdom for Warriors is we do a complete transition training from military service to civilian life. We actually give them financial literacy. We give them, additionally, we're training them in the ability to actually go into the higher educational route, if that's what they choose, and teach them how to transition into the higher education, into colleges and universities in a seamless way. Some of the other distinctive adjunctive things that we're doing in Wisdom for Warriors is we have a teen leadership program to help veterans learn how to become parent as coach, so that there's a transitionary period with children when you have to leave your directionalized parenting and turn more into a coach, because a child is developing, and oftentimes parents make a very awkward transition into that particular space of then parenting teenagers. So we have a whole program for helping veterans parent teens better, and then a whole program for the teenagers themselves on the same competencies that we're training the veterans in: self-leadership, leadership, communication skills, innovation, thinking strategies for the kids as well, which is one of the things that Peopleistic does. Is we go into school districts and roll out a very pervasive teen leadership program.
And the VA Medical Center is not doing any of this, are they?
No. I mean, hats off to every veteran provider out there that is doing what they feel is the right thing for veterans. So, hats off. It is the 4th of July, and all acknowledgement to all parties involved. But what I also notice is that in the veteran space, that there's very, very little collaboration between the providers. my whole premise is that we have to collaborate. No one has all the answers. So we have to collaborate because the veteran issue is as diverse as the individual veteran. So we have to collaborate to bring to the table as many tools, as many systems as possible to help the veteran at as many different levels as they are experiencing struggle. I mean, one of my big dreams is I've had a state-approved school for coaching in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 10 years until I moved to Dallas. And what I desire to do is actually to train veterans to be trauma resolution coaches so that it's warrior to warrior. The problem is way too big. The government's not going to do it. Our state organizations aren't going to do it. Our organizations, our corporations may give a good go at it. Our religious organizations will give a good go at it, but it is too big. And no one understands a veteran like another veteran. So if I could actually get a team of veterans that say, my hand's up, like I want to pay it forward, I want to give life back, I want to help my fellow soldier. And then we train those veterans in actually becoming trauma resolution coaches. Then we have a grassroots effort across the country that will actually have a huge impact on the veteran issue. And then America will then finally have done its duty to those that have done their duty for America.
Wow. Gary, what an amazing segment. Thank you. You're a great guy. Give me the website one more time.
It's wisdom, the number 4, for warriors. So it's wisdomforwarriors.org. My corporate site is www.peopleistic. That's the word people, ISTIC, tacked onto it, .us. So peopleistic.us.
Gary D. Rodriguez, thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
You bet. Just ahead, would you like to know the secrets to getting college for free? My next guest is going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. Don't go away. The Jeff Crilley Show will be right back.